Let's go back to one of our top stories now, and the train service provider Metrorail telling us that 3 people died in a collision of 2 trains at a station in Pretoria today, and they are setting up a walk-in center for passengers who were involved. Let's take you live to ENCA's Lindokuhle Xulu, who's following up on that train crash. And Lindokuhle, after the initial shock and perhaps dealing with the scene, immediately dealing with the scene and the people affected, comes the investigation. What has the rail safety regulator been telling you?
Well, Tulas, they haven't been saying anything, but on the sidelines they did say that as a regulator they did as much as they can. I mean, taking back to last year, in fact, the railway safety regulator did try to take the permit, and in fact they did take the permit from PRASA in terms of operating, but of course PRASA took them to court to actually try and find an amicable solution in terms of them being able to commute, their commuters while they are still at finding a way to actually be compliant with the railway safety regulator. But in fact, on my hand right now in my phone, I do have a soft copy of that court order, which is the special agreement between PRASA and the railway safety regulator, in terms of them saying that if they were to give their permission back, if they were to rescind that permit which they have taken from them, they in fact have to apply to comply with some of these special agreements. And if I can read just one of them, it says PRASA shall submit a cost maintenance plan in terms of the engineering plan that will ensure that there is safety. And of course, they said that this plan should not should be submitted not later than the 30th of October 2018. Well, I can tell you right now that that is one of the points that we will be starting at, in terms of the fact that there was a plan, there was a special agreements plan in terms of PRASA being compliant with the railway safety regulator, in terms of the fact that initially they've taken away this permit to operate, but at a later stage, after being taken to court, both parties agreed that PRASA can still operate under the Metrorail in terms of their daily operations, but they need to comply with some of these special contingency things that they have put in place. But we're still going to question them, the regulators. They're saying right now that they cannot comment until they get full details of what has happened here, and that is of course going to take place when PRASA is allowed to actually start and commence with their investigations of what caused this accident. But some of the things that they are saying to us, in fact, is that this might be caused by a theft of cables as well as monitoring devices in this particular railway. But of course, that plays into the question of whether maintenance is done regularly, because I believe if maintenance was done regularly, they would be able to flag that the devices that actually detect that there is 2 trains in one railway would have been working if there was proper maintenance. But we will be putting that, of course, as we wait for the Minister of Transport, Plain Demand, to come and, of course, brief the media as well as visit this particular incident area.
I suppose if we were to draw parallels, then, Lindo, it would be a bit like the point in time last year when the Civil Aviation Authority withdrew the operating permit of South African Express over concerns about their fleet and how it's maintained. And that's important context that you are putting there, because as things stand at this particular point, Metrorail is pointing to issues of signaling, manual signaling, as the prime suspect for today's crash.
Well, very much so, Chulas. And in fact, when the permit was taken away from them, I just like to make this clear that the PRASA themselves, they took the regulating body, which is the railway safety regulator, to court, and hence they came to a decision that they can operate under certain agreements between the 2 parties. But I mean, one of their arguments, in fact, when they got this permit back, was the fact that they are commuting the poorest of the poor, and they are saying that if this permit, at the time they said that if this permit was granted to them to still continue to operate, it doesn't mean that they are lifting the safety concerns of this regulatory or regulating body. But I mean, it's the same story again, Chulas, in terms of what you were mentioning before. It is all about the safety concerns of the regulatory body. But of course, because of the law that is in South Africa, when they were taken to court, they had to come to a consensus in terms of reaching an agreement to allow PRASA to continue operating, because of the concern, particularly that was raised in terms of the commuters that will be affected should an operator as big as as big as Metrorail stops. But one of the concerns here to us, of course, is again the fact that tomorrow is the opening of schools, and you find that a lot of school pupils are commuting using this particular service provider, and that raises the question then in terms of what weighs more, the safety of these pupils, the safety of these commuters, as well as the fact that they cannot get to their respective places without this without this service provider. So those are the questions that we will be posing to the particularly Minister of Transport, Blaine Zimande, in terms of what exactly needs to be done then, because there is no alternative for these people that use this particular railway, because it's cheaper. It's a cheaper way of getting around for people, particularly in townships. But in terms of the safety, is it really is it really the best that we can do in terms of the South African transport services?
So a quick update then for us, Lindo Guhle, in terms of the number of people that have been killed. There was a point where there was a bit of confusion about how many people had died in this crash, but also the number of people who are in hospital, including those that are said to be critical, and the status of the train service there.
Well, Tulas, I'm just going to try and find the document. Yes, I have been sent the latest stats in terms of that, but what they are saying is that, the 640 people that have been injured have been sent to various hospitals. They did mention them, but out of all of those people, 3 people have been confirmed to have died, and 11 are in a critical condition, while 61 are in a stable position. 555 of those people that were injured here have, sustained minor injuries, and of course, again, returning to that all-important number of the 3 people that were fatally killed and are yet to be removed, in fact, from this particular railway. But the numbers stand like that. Several hospitals around the city of Tshwane are, in fact, operating, and they're trying to get those who were injured in this particular incident back to health.
And the train service will remain suspended between the various areas, and I think one of them was mentioned was Mabopane and Pretoria.
Well, they will be. They're saying that that particular route will be closed off from Mabopane to Pretoria, but it raises concerns again to us about the pupils that needed to use this particular service, and you can understand that parents have been banking on the fact that this is a cheaper mode of transport, and looking at the fact that schools are opening tomorrow, it is little time to actually provide contingency plans in terms of how those children will be getting to school. Absolutely. But it seems that they do have to find alternative transport.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That is ENCA's Lindo Guhle tracking that story for us there, where there's been that train crash which has led to 3 people dying in the course of the collision between 2 trains, and the investigations very much underway at this particular point.